Good evening, everyone. Welcome to GDG Johannesburg, and my name is Marilyn. Particularly today, we have a really special meetup. It's a collaboration between GDG Johannesburg and She Can Do. So She Can Do is a meetup community which focuses on design, UX, as well as related industries. And so we hope you enjoy this collaboration. Cool. So what is GDG? So GDG is basically a meetup where developers come together and discuss Google developer technologies, and those include Android, Firebase, Angular, Flutter, Dart, and TensorFlow, etc., etc. Yeah, that's what we focus on. Then we've got Women Tech Makers. This session is a Women Tech Makers session, which is the collaboration that we're doing as well. And Women Tech Makers is basically a program that provides visibility, community, as well as resources for women in tech. And if you're interested in joining the community, you can go to womentechmakers.com and join the Women Tech Makers community. Cool. Then GDG meets every first Wednesday of every month, and you can find us on gdg.community.dev/GDG Johannesburg. On Twitter, we are GDG at GDG Johannesburg, and then on Instagram, we are GDG Johannesburg, and on email, it's gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com. Cool. We also have a code of conduct. So by attending this meetup, you agree to this code of conduct. The full version can be found from developers.google.com/community guidelines. But basically, it just says that you need to be nice and just assume positive intent. We also have an anti-harassment policy to create harassment-free environment and an experience for everyone. So if you have any issues, you can contact us on gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com, and we'll assist where we can. Cool. A huge thank you to our sponsors, Luno. First, Luno for the speaker gifts. Then we've got Offers and for the swag. We've got JetBrains for the JetBrains licenses, as well as Retro Rabbit for the StreamYard, which is where we're hosting this meetup right now. And if you'd like to be a speaker, you can get in touch with us on gdgjohannesburg@gmail.com or on Twitter on our handle @gdgjohannesburg. New and experienced speakers are welcome. So we look forward to hearing from you, and please reach out to us. Cool. Then jumping on to today's agenda. First up is the welcoming, which is what we just did now. Then we'll move on to the first talk, which is from Jacqueline, which will be about working together for better digital products. Then after that, we'll then hop on to the panel discussion, which will be focusing on the collaboration between designers and developers. And some of our panelists will be Maya, Laurent, Marilyn, as well as Laurent again. Cool. So our first talk is from Jacqueline, and it will be about working together for better digital products.
Oh, hi everyone. Can you hear me? All good?
We can hear you, Maya. How are you doing?
I'm really good. And
Awesome.
You can see my screen properly. All good?
Yes, we can see your screen.
There's
yes.
nothing worse than like talking and people going like, Jackson, what you're saying. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about some stuff. So I don't always know if it's advisable to listen to the thing that I talk about, but I have done this for a long time. So maybe in amongst all of this, there's some interesting things. So the first thing is I want to talk about working together for better digital products. But I took this past my my pet UX writer last night, and he thought that the message that I have in my talk is actually better, like it doesn't describe this properly. And he also thought this line was weak, so I updated it, and he said that we should rather call it "making friends for money." So what we are, like, the theme is still the same. It's about collaboration, but the main thing that I want us to kind of start talking about is that often when I start working in technology teams over the years, over many years in my career, I often hear people say, we don't care what users say or think. And what I hear in my head as a human-centered designer with a lot of strategy and like kind of making sure that we make money through the products that we make, I hear, we don't care about getting paid. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about like money with the design and the development community, because for me, that's the one thing that I wish people would think a little bit more about, because sometimes, you know, you come up with a specific idea and you share it, and people think that you're doing it for some like imaginary reason. And if we kind of pull it back to business strategy and why we are all here, then it's kind of easier to kind of understand why we're doing this work. So the first part for me is that I don't know if you know this, but there's this thing called a profit and loss statement. And somewhere in your business, they are having a conversation about the P&L. And all the product engineering and the design teams are on the loss part of that statement, because we provide a service to the business, and only through our work does the business make money. So why is this important? This affects how the business decides how many people you can have in your team, how many people you can hire, and like what cool stuff you can actually be making. So that's kind of why, even if you don't really care about human-centered design, we should be caring about our customers, because that's how the business makes money. And they kind of fund us to do the things that we love to do. So my first tip is care more about the money. So I want to kind of talk about saving money. And one of the ways that we do that is we should be more efficient by understanding how we can make customers as happy as quickly as possible. So there's this very smart man called Jesse James Garrett. And every time anyone asks me for any reading that they should do, I still recommend this book, even though it was like written in 2002. But let's quickly talk through it. So he talks about the 5 S's. The bottom layer is strategy. So strategy looks at user needs and site objectives. That's still kind of old language. These days, we would just talk about the system objectives or how the business is trying to make money. And this bit in the middle is that if you think about all the people in the world, and this is the thing that you are making for your business, that bit in the middle that intersects in the Venn diagram, that is your customer market fit. So those are the people that will be using your system. And those are the people that most of us should be caring about. The second part is the scope part. That's where you do functional specification and content requirements. Functional specification is what do people want to do on your system. So if I think about some of the like when I worked in banking, I worked in the transactional banking space. So setting up beneficiaries, paying someone, that's kind of what I mean. So what things are you trying to do? And then you also get like what content do they expect? So when we talk about content, we sometimes think that we're talking about like kind of, you know, newspapers or something, but it could also just be that someone expects to see a review on a page to give them the confidence to buy the product. The next layer is the structure layer. The structure layer is the interaction and information architecture. Interaction design, I just want to pause at. So that's one of the areas that I hear a lot of misunderstanding about these days, where people think it's animation. Interaction design actually comes from the 70s. So it's human-computer interaction and human factors. So what it looks at is how humans interact with technology. So basically the top layer is always the people. So what do people try and do in your system? The middle layer is how the technology works, so the flow. So how does what happens on the glass for your customer or the person using it to kind of get through their task? And the bottom layer is that technology working up. So that's kind of the space I love working in, and that's why I'm always so comfortable working with both engineers and designers, probably because I've been both. Then we get to the skeleton layer, and this is where people often think this is where UX happens. This is where the wireframe happens. So if you work in a team as an engineer or as a designer and you only see wireframes, you should start getting a little bit worried, and we should start like kind of having conversations to at least understand why the business is trying to get us to do stuff, because that just kind of helps give meaning and making sure that the work that we do will be used, which I think is really important for any of us who focus on craft. Then the top layer is the surface layer, so that is the visual design. So often when people talk about the all of this, they kind of talk only about visual design. And that's the big thing that they think there's an overlap. Something I wanted to kind of look at here is task orientation versus information orientation. So that's kind of how this diagram also hangs together. And with that, I just kind of wanted to give you this context of like, this is how the process can hang together. So where are the screens? Like when I hear that, I like always get a little bit concerned, because it means that we work in a business that only focuses on the visual output and doesn't really pay that much attention on why people are using the system and why we are making the things that we are making. So I want to kind of then overlay what I've just shown you on a kind of software process. So the double diamond, are we making the right things? So that is where product and design generally go and find out what customers want. That's about product market fit. So either if it's a startup or if you're spinning up like a new division, like you would kind of spend time on that. Personally, this is where I try to make sure that when I do a conceptual design, I make sure that at least at this one point, the engineering team or someone from the engineering team, at least one person, should be seeing the work that we're doing. So we kind of do stuff like problem definition. In my view, technical architecture should be involved here. It's a little bit difficult to talk about the technical integration because that's more dependent on the type of work that you do. What I'm trying to point out is that the technical and like capability should be part of this process, even if it's just informed and consulted. But your tech lead should probably be in these sessions as well. What we'll build, that is kind of where we go. This is what the business wants to make money. This is what customers want so that we can make money for the business. And we kind of hang out with the engineering team to make sure that we can actually make something, right? So what are we able to make? Then that's all the other stuff. I also just wanted to do like a little bit of an overlap there at the bottom. So the purple bit is the product capability, the pinkish bit is the design capability, the blue bit is the engineering capability. Now, even if we just look at this visualization, we actually see there's very little overlap between the different capabilities. So it shouldn't be that surprising to us that it often seems that there is conflict or misunderstanding between the capabilities, because we only really touch together on these different points. And very often, most people are involved only at the releases. And I mean, when you're in a project where the releases have, like the release cycle has been really bad, like that's where there's a lot of tension. So it's no wonder that it often feels like there's a lot of tension between the different team members. And that's true if this is the only way that you ever interact with each other. So kind of the main thing that I wanted to illustrate that all the things I've been saying is, imagine we've got this like whole diagram of when you start a product, you have one person, the product person, trying to figure out what the business wants. Then you get two people, the design lead and the product person, figure out product market fit. They figure out whether it's the right product. Next, you get some sort of technical involvement so that we can figure out like what we want to make. That also depends on the project, right? On what, if it's software as a service or whatever, when you get involved from a technical perspective kind of differs there. Then POs start getting involved. We get the design team, more involvement from a technical back-end integration. That's where the whole team kind of does the work, where the release happens. So if we start mapping a cost to this, let's assume everyone makes the same amount of money. Let's say you start out with one person, that's your cost for a certain amount of time. And you see how the cost kind of just goes all the way up the more people are involved. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that if we are doing work from an engineering and a design perspective, where we are doing half-baked thought or half thought out reasons for doing the work, we don't really know if it'll work. We are actually costing the business more money. So having cheap ways of prototyping ideas, like not spending that much time and money on making sure what we should be making, and then really spending a lot of time on getting the craft and the detail of the work right. That is what I think, and that is what I believe most teams should be doing from an efficiency perspective. So this kind of talks to how we save money by ensuring a good process. So in this case, we are looking at efficiency to delivering the right software for our customers. The other two things that we look at is saving and making money, right? So saving money usually looks to the employee experience. So how do we reduce customer contact? So like we don't want too many people like phoning the contact center. Sorry, the triple C. Making money, that's where you kind of look at your KPIs and you look at revenue and you look like AOV, depending on what space. I've been working at Superblist, so I've been spending a lot of time with the KPIs on ecom. So that's kind of a big thing for us. Okay, cool. There. So the next thing that is super, super, super important to me, that's the money bit, is for me, it's really important to have a good team. So I'm going to try and swap to this. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. Actually, I have no idea if you'll be able to hear this. If you can't hear this, can someone please tell me?
Hey, Jacqueline.
Yeah?
Can't hear it.
Okay, cool.
You can try to share video if you want to.
Oh no, that sounds complicated. What if I mess it up? Anyway, I'll give you a quick overview. Be like Mr. Renham. in this clip, the IT team goes to the head of the business, Mr. Renham, to complain about Jen because she doesn't actually know anything about IT. And then the phone rings and someone phones to say, oh, this particular team didn't know how to work together. And then Mr. Renham goes, if you can't work together as a team, you're all fired. And as he's trying to fire them, they don't know how to like get rid of everyone. Then he phones the security team and he's like, if you can't work together as a whole team, I'm going to fire the whole team. You know, so for me, I really believe that people should work together as a team. So when people talk about the difference in or conflict or like how people feel about the different capabilities in a team, I'm like, we should be working together for a better outcome together. We shouldn't be like seeing ourselves as like opposites. So it's all about like kind of teamwork. So product manage, and for me, I can't talk about experience design and engineering without talking about product management. For me, those three things are really important, and I always say that there are no second-class citizens in any of the teams that I work with. So I couldn't leave out product management. Product management is responsible for the what. Experience design is responsible for the how, and engineering makes. My engineering aspect of this talk is a little bit light. If you're interested in having conversations with me to help me with my research, I'd really appreciate that. That's kind of one of the things that I'll be looking at next in just kind of mapping out how engineering works better in this framework. So I want to just give a few thoughts around product management because I think a lot of the things that are perceived from designers and engineers as conflict often can be either resolved or is partially caused by the behavior of product. So product is really, really important to help everyone deliver their best work. So the main thing for me is I really appreciate if product managers can support design and engineering equally. And the other thing that's really important, as we've seen this profit and loss statement, how do we make sure we make the right things? And the onus of that usually lies on the product manager. We need to make sure that we do product discovery. And in the teams I like to work with, which is empowered teams, product and experience design usually works together to get like a better experience for everyone. So this is quite a lot, but I realized that I have a lot to say about this topic. I think I spent about 2 years where I worked in different teams to get, I actually helped design teams who were struggling to integrate into engineering. So I kind of spent a lot of time getting teams to just work better together. So my advice to both engineering and design is make sure that you're informed on strategy. What is the business trying to do? Make sure that you have access to customer research. If you don't have a researcher in your team that can share the research with you, go and find someone that can do it. Because the more we know about what our customers want, the faster it is for us to iterate through the designs and the engineering that we do to have better solutions. make sure that you nominate a responsible tech person. So in my view, like certain people are not interested in the front end, and that's really, really perfectly okay. Just tell us if you're not interested. But we do need one person in the team to help us make sure that we make the right things when we go into that first part of the design. Make sure you have your head in the game. So when I do feedback with engineers, I really need to listen and understand how the flows work and how the technology works so that my design caters for the requirement that they have. Conversely, I need an engineer to really think through in detail what the effect is of my design. Because if you tell me that my design will work, and then when we go into sprint planning and all of a sudden, actually I worked with an amazing tech lead who was super, super, super talented, but he had this habit of telling us that things would work, and us, I mean product and design. We would have sessions with him, and when we go into sprint planning, he'd forgotten what he told us, and that was really frustrating because he used to like have to jump around too much. So really make sure you have your head in the game, respect each other's expertise. For instance, we can't like look at your code, but from a design perspective, everyone can see the work that we do. And often when we show you stuff, we show you the solution. And it's easy to comment on a simplified solution, but getting there can be hard. So kind of just be mindful that we can't comment on the quality of your code. So also just respect our capability as well. That's actually an example I heard today about, anyway, never mind. Ask questions, don't get annoyed. So I think a lot of us, a lot of people in the craft spaces that we work are introverts. So they don't really know to say that they don't care about this part of the work because there are people involved, and that's perfectly okay. But you can just send a message, say, Jax, I don't want to be involved in this, but I'm really love the fact that we have a designer in the team. Don't be a dick. So don't just I see a lot of sniping in certain teams. So and that for me is a very negative behavior. Don't let Dunning-Kruger get you. So the less you know about a subject, the more likely you are to comment about it. And that, if when you talk to experts, they're like, no, that's not how it works. So that's one thing that we should all be very mindful of. Don't compromise. That's the story of the man who wanted to go to dinner and he wanted to wear his comfortable black shoes, but his partner wanted him to wear his dress shoes. And the compromise there is to wear one black and one brown shoe. Don't do that. So as human beings, we try and compromise. So between design and engineering, if a design doesn't work, rather say that it won't work, and then we should go and revise the design. And we can always kind of go back to the design for like a future state. The thing that I was reminded again recently is conflict isn't always bad. So people kind of go, oh, there was friction, so there was a real problem in the team. But you also need to kind of look at storm, form, norm. What part of the project are you on? And if you only have designers maybe or some new capability joining, I mean ML is a new capability that a lot of teams have been kind of incorporating into their team. So when other people kind of start doing tasks that you were used to doing, you should acknowledge the fact that there's now an expert who is responsible for that piece of work. And sometimes that makes people feel uncomfortable, and that kind of manifests itself as conflict. So that's the other thing that I recommend. If you see conflict, it's not necessarily bad. The other thing about conflict is also there's creative tension. So creative tension is also an built-in thing between the craft spaces that we are working. But I think for me, the main thing is that if we work together as a team, we think about team wins instead of thinking about individual wins. And that is how I believe the best teams I've ever worked with and the teams I miss and love the most, that's what we really got right. Then the last one is very specific. Please don't write copy unless you have a degree in English. So I know that not all teams have UX writers, and I know I've had to do some UX writing recently, and it pains me because I know really good UX writers and I know my copy is not good. But if you don't have the right copy for an error message or whatever it is that you're working on at that moment in time, make sure that you ask your product person or your designer. The design team should be responsible for that because that's part of the experience, right? But that really causes a lot of problems downstream when we start sharing or when we do work. It like takes a lot of rework, and it's been something that's been really hard for me in large systems, and it's kind of it's costing me a lot of money at the moment to go back and like try and fix all of this stuff. Also, UX writing as a capability is probably one of the newest kids on the block, and a lot of people don't know what they do. And as human beings, it's so easy for us, you know, to get into this mentality of being surrounded by similar people to us. And if you're the only people of a type in a room, if you're the only designer, if you're the only whatever, like it's much harder for you to feel like your voice is heard, and the probability of you feeling a little bit more stressed out by being the only like the only writer in the room is harder. So, you know, like also acknowledge that being the only person in the team of like is hard. So let's try and like bring people in and like really be accommodating so that we can kind of work together and get better outcomes together. Practical advice, I love doing whiteboard exercises together. So when we start a new piece of work, what we do is product design and engineering work in the room together. We start talking about the task or what we think the scope should be, and we start mapping those processes out. We say, this is what the customer is doing, this is what should happen logically, functionality-wise on the screen, and this is what what should be happening in the tech stack, which includes like back-end our services, because mapping our services right in the beginning means that we can like map out the flows and do all the error scenarios properly so that we write the right copy, we create like all the correct assets to make it easy for us to whoop through that work and like do really high quality work at the first pass. I also like doing kickoff workshops. Workshops basically also to ask people not only what this particular piece of work should be, but to get feedback on what we think as a product design and engineering community would be really good ideas for the systems that we work in. The best ideas come from the people who do the work. So I really love doing that. Design demos should really include engineering. So if you run design sprints, and you have an embedded team, try and invite an engineer, whoever is involved in the work, and if they can make it, it's great. But getting into a habit of having a demo every 2 weeks that's 20 minutes long gives visibility on what you can expect. And I personally love doing user story mapping together as a team. It's a great handover tool to understand which structure we should follow, and it also gives everyone input on what order the user story should be in. So that's me talking about making friends for money. So even if you don't care about human-centered design, even if you don't care about all those other things, but you really love designing, if you really love creating code, if you really just love the work that you do, keep in mind that we also need to keep the businesses that we love working for afloat. And in order to do that, we need to keep our customers happy. And my last screen doesn't work. That's it. Thank you, guys. I hope there was some value in there. And yeah, that was awesome.
Thank you so much, Jax. That was really, really awesome. A lot of value in it. I could relate with a lot of the stuff that you touched on. We'll just have a look at the questions for now.
Cool.
But in the meantime, while we wait for questions, cool. We've got some comments from people saying that this was really, really awesome, and they would like to share this with their teams.
Yay! That's the best outcome.
Cool. Lizette saying thank you so much.
Hey, Liz.
Cool.
Hey, Tom, there you are.
Very
Sorry,
insightful.
it's nice to see some friends there as well.
Yes, I'm sure. It was quite an insightful talk.
Cool, thanks.
Cool. I really like the idea of having kickoff workshops. Can you touch on some of the benefits of those kickoff workshops?
For me, there are two really big things about that. The first is that, when we do product discovery, people have a tendency to want to limit the size of the audience. But in all the work that I've seen and all of the reading I've seen, including the large audience so that everyone can be part of the process is the best way of doing it. So for me, not only is it people have a tendency to dislike a design or comment on a design. But if we all worked on the design is better and we all feel that we're involved in the process. So for me, that's the biggest thing. So not only is it a huge benefit for the team, but there's huge monetary value because you don't have to bring people on board. They get it because they were there in the beginning. So 2 hours in the beginning of a project can save you many hours at the end.
Oh, very true, very true. Awesome. We've got a question from Lizette. How do you balance the need to make money with ethical design?
So I spent a lot of time in my career being. I come from a human factors background, so I'm fiercely human-centered. I've spent the last 20 years of my life to argue with people to not screw over like human beings. So in the beginning, I thought it was just part of my job to do good designs. But what I ended up doing is being the voice of reason in the room often. So being the kind of person who goes that this is actually a completely unacceptable behavior from the business and escalating it to the right level to make sure that whatever idea is pitched that is unethical doesn't go ahead. I think for me, Liz, there's also a much deeper conversation there. So the one is, how do you make sure that the work that you do is generally roughly ethical? That's one thing. The second thing is something else I've been spending a lot of time trying to think about is like systemically, we live in a world that currently promotes large businesses. So we live in a system that promotes money over ethics. So how do we as a design community start using our skills to get out of that systems trap? But you and I can talk about that separately because we'll geek out about it.
Cool, awesome. Cool. Any other questions? I don't think there are any other questions. Cool. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining.
Go do awesome things, guys. Go make awesome, beautiful, usable things together. That's my last comment.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Cool.
Take care.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was an awesome talk.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Cool. Awesome. So that was a really awesome talk. Next up, we've got the panel discussion, which will be about the collaboration between designers and developers. And some of our panelists are Maya, Lauren, Marilyn, and Laurent.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Hi.
Everyone.
Hi.
Cool. I'll hand over to you, is it?
Cool. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to our panel discussion. I'm really excited to facilitate this for us today and interested to hear everyone's experiences and stories that you can share with the audience. So we're going to start by just doing intros, of course. So I'd like everyone to mention your name. What is the type of work that you do, and what is it that you like most about what you do? So I'll start. My name is Inez, and I'm currently the head of product design at 22/7. And what I love most about my job is that the core value of helping people is something that's sort of, it's like pushed throughout the organization, regardless of the teams or, the responsibilities or such. So it's, in terms of like collaboration, it really that value pushes through, which is amazing. So I'm going to start by asking Marilyn to introduce herself and the type of work and what you enjoy the most.
Okay, well, my name is Marilyn, and I'm a product designer at 27, which is a free budgeting app from Old Mutual. What I love most about my job is, well, I like to think of myself as a creative problem solver, Superman. So what I really love about it is that I get to help people manage their money better, which is something that speaks volumes to me at this moment in time. So yeah.
Lauren Green. Got two Laurens here.
I'm Lauren Green. I am based in Cape Town, South Africa. I am an Android developer as well as occasionally a UX and UI designer, and I'm based at Snap Mobile. So Snap Mobile is an agency that develops awesome mobile apps, so Android, iOS, Flutter, and web apps for clients. And what I love about working for Snap Mobile is that I get to work on apps that are built from the ground up, and I get exposed to a variety of clients. I also enjoy working with awesome people, and I kind of like to think of myself as a bit of a unicorn because I do a bit of occasional UX and UI design, but I am an Android developer, so it's really awesome that I get to do both sides.
Amazing. Maya.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm an Android developer for a long time, and at the moment I'm working at Luno. And what I love about my job is that I get to build cool things and that it's super creative. What I love about Luno is that one of our core values is to make our customers happy. And the other thing I love about Luno is that we have small teams where we have iOS, Android designers, product people, all in a small group trying to build the best thing that we can.
Amazing, thank you. And then Lauren Stratum.
The dreaded mute button. So yes, I am Lauren. I am currently a service design lead. I'm a freelancer at the moment. So currently I'm working on some really, really cool things at ABSA. I have a long history in the financial services industry. I've worked on financial managers. I've worked on banks. I've built banks from scratch. I've helped banks that exist get better. A consistent theme throughout my career, though, has always been focused on the customer. So whatever role I've been in, I've done UX, I've done product, I've done quite a couple of different things in my, it's a very short career because I'm so young. I've done quite a few things across my time, so I'm a bit of a polymath too, and that's rolled up really nicely for me into service design because it allows me to look like across the value chain, understanding business and product like Jax was talking about earlier, right through to development, implementation, even outside of digital into physical channels. So that's actually what I love most about my job too, is it's never the same thing. The channels are always different, and the stuff is always complicated, which I think is good sometimes.
Cool. That's really interesting. It sounds like everyone here is sort of multi-skilled in the sense that they do jump around on the typical role. So this will lead for interesting discussion. I'd maybe like to start with Lauren Green. I mean, so for someone who specifically is skilled across both design and engineering, could you maybe tell us a bit about your current working relationship between the teams and the collaboration there? What's working, what's not working?
So currently I'm working for one of Snap's clients, which is a leading Kenyan bank. And so basically how their structure is they have different teams, and within each team, they have the front-end developers, so the iOS, Android, web, and then the back-end developers. They have QA testers as well as designers in each of the teams. So I am in this team structure, but then I'm also part of the design team. So I am focusing mainly on UI for Android as well as animations, but then I also do features occasionally. But I'm currently the only developer that is based in the design team as well. So I attend all their design meetings as well, which is really interesting. And then I get to give input early on, which is very cool.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how do you think that has sort of benefited you?
Well, it's definitely benefited me in the sense that I have learned a lot more about design through being a part of that whole process. And it's definitely benefits them too, because they get technical feedback early on in the process. And yeah, so at the moment, I am the only developer, but they want to have an iOS developer and a web developer also in the design team, so that, yeah, there's way more collaboration.
Very cool. And then similarly, I mean, Maya, you mentioned that you've got small groups of also the various skills in each group. So is that quite similar to what's been described?
Yeah. So for me personally, I've dabbled in the UI UX world, but it's such a mind shift that if I'm busy coding or busy trying to solve a technical problem, I catch myself taking shortcuts, which is not necessarily in the customer's best interest. So I think it's important to have some kind of separation there. But at the same time, the teams that I work in now, they're really close-knit teams with all the competencies, and we have really good rapport on the teams. And then that makes for a good understanding and a good crossover between the design and the technical solutions.
Okay, so both like teams where there are different skills in each team.
Yeah, so it's like a cross-functional team. Our teams are cross-functional. Right. So we have back-end product, iOS, Android, design, all in a small, tight-knit group that solves one particular problem for the app.
Okay, that's very interesting. Marilyn, do you want to share a bit about your working structure and whether that's the same or different?
I would say my working structure is almost similar to but in the sense it is cross-functional, but then again our team is quite small. So currently our designers are platform specific. Currently I was on iOS and now I'm on Android and web. So we kind of do a round robin. So the designers and the developers each get to work or cohesively together. So yeah. I'd say it's similar, but not. I wish that it was more cross-functional, where you literally just have the Android, the iOS, and the web, everyone working on one particular feature. But because we have 3 separate platforms, it's not possible at this moment in time with our current size.
Cool. So, Lawrence Freedom, you've heard now like sort of different working relationships. Based on those that we've heard and yours that you've experienced in your career, what would you describe as like your ideal collaborative structure?
So this is going to sound like a bit of a plug, but the environment I'm working in right now is actually probably one of the best I've been working in, because of how we're kind of set up and how we're geared. We're on a very high profile project. So of course there's lots of budget, which means there's all the things that we all want to have all the time. So I'm just lapping it up and I'm enjoying it while I can, because I know eventually it'll come crashing down and I'll have, team of 2. But right now, actually, we're quite a full complemented team, quite cross-functional as well, which is really great. So we have sort of a service design capability on this particular project right now. We have a process engineering capability on the project. We have channel-specific designers and developers in our environment. So they're kind of cross-platform, but per channel. So the designers just design for app, they translate across both, they look for, the UX across both. And then we have developers who are kind of more technology specific, but we kind of engage them that way. And then we also have like a very strong business team that also consists of sort of like a business architect, the product owner, us as the kind of the kind of lead designers in the space, and also the technical architects and the kind of lead developers. And I think it's been really cool to watch how sometimes even, and I think later some of the questions I might get to give you this example, but I'll give you a sneaky peek now. Sometimes we've even had situations where we've kind of solved in a way, thinking about the existing kind of constraints and things, and we're trying to push the boundary. And then we've had an example recently where our architect has come back and said to us, listen, guys, I've got an even better idea. And this is how we can take this to the next level. And he's got that customer at his forefront. So sometimes even the customer-centric innovation is coming out of the more technical side of the kind of triage or the trio of, not a triage, no, let's not say triage, because that means we're fixing things that are broken. A trio, that kind of triad, I think was the word I was looking for. So I think that's been very cool for me to experience in this kind of space where we've had so much buy-in for the customer experience that, we just are working nicely and the structure works nicely. And of course, nothing is perfect, but I think this has been my best experience so far, actually. I'll be perfectly honest.
That's I'm so happy for you that you're in that space.
I'm happy for me too for a short while.
But that's actually something that I did want us to touch on is, can we share some examples with the audience of times when the collaboration, when like there have been good outcomes because of the collaboration? So Lauren, as you mentioned, that was like additional ideas that you might not have received without the collaboration. So I'm going to ask maybe Maya, do you have any other examples of when this type of collaboration was extremely beneficial?
Yeah, I have a recent example of a thing we designed, and there was a flow with a end of flow screen on the end, where we needed to communicate something to the customer on a previous screen, and there was just no way for us to technically get that message to the right place on the right screen. And our designers very carefully figured out that they could solve it visually with a different problem, and that just made from a technical point of view, made the implementation easier and made it better for the customer. So there's sometimes where just like that conflict that Jax was speaking about, where there's something where you get stuck and you can't go through, and then you just say, listen, this is not working this way, this is not working this way, and then that actually makes people be creative because they find another good creative solution through.
That's nice. Ways to sort of like inspire the creativity with people.
Yeah.
And I guess all of this is also like the buy-in from each team and each collaborator is really important. Marilyn, I wonder, have you ever experienced, or what are some like tips that you would recommend for how to get the buy-in to create these spaces?
To create these spaces, I am a firm believer, and I've seen it in practice, and I've seen it work. Co-working workshops. They're done. Co-creation workshops. Correction. Yes, they're done very early. Jax has mentioned it. I've heard it from another talk. We actually implemented one recently. It really brought the team together. Especially, we also brought in a product. Someone from product in one of these co-creation workshops. And it also, with this buy-in, it also got to, like developers got to understand exactly where the pain points are. And they actually came up with solutions to actually improve on what the designers did not identify at the time. So that for me was, I would absolutely suggest that people should do co-creation workshops if you can. We don't always have the time to kind of put them in, but
yeah, it's true. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits, definitely. And then I guess that the sort of hard part is the conflict and dealing with that, right? Because traditionally we're supposed to hate each other and not understand each other and never see each other. So, I mean, a lot of teams are very mature in having got into the space of like alignment on customers. And a lot of teams are still in progress of getting to that space and overcoming these ways of traditionally doing things. So Lauren Green, I wonder if you've got any tips for teams that are still going through that and trying to resolve these conflict areas. Maybe some examples that you've sort of worked through.
Yes. I think first I'm just going to maybe give some tips maybe for a working relationship between developers and designers. So firstly, I would say be collaborative. Getting devs involved early in the design process and getting them involved in meetings is really beneficial. And I think it's important to check with your product manager or Scrum Master to ensure that you're involved in these important conversations so that you get a chance to give your input before it's too late and before the designs are finalized. And devs should always review their specs and designs thoroughly. And if they have any questions, they should not be afraid to ask the designers if they're unsure. And also like Marilyn said, the workshops and encouraging knowledge sharing is so important, and it really does help. And then the second thing you mentioned was an example of conflict. I think kind of recently there was actually this kind of happened. So I was working on, another developer in the team was working on a feature, and then it was like a motion layout for one of the screens with a collapsing toolbar. And then I also started working on that screen as well and adding to it. And then in one of the design meetings, I actually found out that this entire screen was being redesigned. And like everything that we worked on was now changed. So yeah, that's why it's so important to have these discussions and developers to be involved in this so that things like this doesn't happen and it doesn't avoid duplicate work or work that is no longer actually valid.
Yeah, definitely. Maya, I saw you chuckling when I asked the question. Did that hit?
Oh, yeah. So I've got a good sort of super practical tip.
Tell us.
I know it's the night before sprint end, right? And you've put your tickets up for review or for test. So what usually happens at that point is the designer looks at the screen and then they say, oh, but this font is supposed to be this value of gray and the font size is the wrong thing. And then the initial reaction, I've had that reaction before, saying, I just want this thing to work. I don't care if it's not the right gray, right? So, but I've overcome that because what I realize is that those small things make a huge difference to the customer because it means that the product looks polished if those things are fixed. But at the same time, it's equally cool to understand that the devs just want the thing to work first. So what I've done quite successfully in some sprints is I always have a little polish ticket. Up front, I have a polish ticket so that it's easy for a designer to look at it and put the polish tasks on the polish ticket. And then there's a place and it is captured and we are going to do it and we really want to do that. So that validates that input, which is important. And it also frees it up so that the testing can see the functional problems that possibly are there so we can prioritize properly. And that also allows the dev then to focus on fixing the functional things and then being able to fit those small things in at the same time. So that's just preempting that scenario.
The polish ticket is amazing. That's
the polish ticket.
Idea. Actually, I've written it down, so I'll implement that tomorrow. Lauren, do you have any other kinds of tips like these? Like, it's really nice that that was very tangible, and I think it's something people can take away. Do you have any other tips we could use?
Yeah, so look, I think everybody's kind of really touched on a lot of what I had kind of had in my mind when you posed the question. I think The other thing I just want to add is that, like, I'm a researcher at heart. So I think we must remember as designers that user data, it can be helpful. It can be a tool for all of us to remove our bias, not just designers, also for developers who are equally as familiar with the products and the customers and the users with a different lens. So for me, I've found, when in doubt and you're really in a sticky situation and you just can't find the compromise within you, take yourselves away from the problem. Even if you have to get another team to run the research for you, take your ego out of it as well, because sometimes we get so caught up in being like, no, but customer is right, and the developer's going, but I need to go live, and like all the things are crazy, and the product owner's like hair is on fire, and the program manager's like near the edge of the ledge, and so then that leads me into my second tip, which is this is really a reminder for everybody, is just and I preach this often, empathy. It's not just for customers, and it's not just for your service colleagues, it's also for your program colleagues. So I touched on something there, and if I can put it from a different sort of lens, it's exactly the same example, but it's about understanding what's important to that other colleague you're working with in that time. So knowing as a designer that it's the 11th hour, the dev team have likely been UATing themselves and, pen testing, and they're all dying to just like go on like a 12-hour sleep shift, and us being pedantic about things at that time can be unhelpful to everybody. And so that's, for me, is where it comes in, is understand where everyone's coming from. It might help you also adjust your own perspective and say like, okay, maybe this isn't important, which is then the last one that I want to add, is also just understand which battles to make into battles. Like, is it really yes, maybe the font needs to be right, but could we just let go of the, maybe the color, maybe it's fine in the same gray as it was above, unless there's a solid usability reason for it, then explain that and help everybody understand. And so it's a combination of those things. So, but then I also just wanted to say, sometimes, and this is applicable to every single person on your project, sometimes people are just assholes, right? And sometimes you have to just kind of walk away and go, I'm gonna let my mental health kind of win this round, and just go, okay, it's cool. And that's not just developers, it's designers, it's product. Pick your battles, like, is this the one that you need to really fight over? Because maybe if you let this one go through, you can, in the future, you can say, look, okay, we've compromised before in your favor, now is the time to compromise in the user's favor. So for me, it's just a combination of those things as well.
Yeah, Marilyn, I saw you sort of like agreeing a lot with what was said there, and laughing at some things. Do you have any experiences or like learnings that you want to respond with?
I would say the Fixer Up ticket, we have what we call design QA tickets. So I really resonate with that one. It is a saving grace. But over and above, in terms of probably just the way we work, and we're all using Slack, I would say, if anything, if a conflict arises, nothing helps better than just getting off your messages and getting on a video call. A lot of miscommunication can come through, even just by emailing and trying to resolve it, can actually just be resolved if everyone just get on the same page. I found that a lot of miscommunication happens and words get missed, and that's just in terms of requirements even. So yeah, that'll probably be like one of the tips that I've, other than what everyone else has mentioned.
And that's super important. I agree. I've recently learned that lesson, so it's really important. Thank you. So thank you everyone for sharing all of those stories. I'm going to hop on to giving the audience some time to ask questions. We've got the first question already that's directed at Laurent, Green, and Maya. You mentioned that both of you have a close-knit team. How do you deal with new people joining the team to be part of this tight or close team? Who wants to respond first?
I can go.
Maya.
My experience with new people are they usually super excited and keen. So they've got like a really nice, fresh energy. And that can actually boost the morale of the team. And then to just make sure that new people really feel happy to ask questions and to say that they don't know. And the best way for me to get new people to do that is to ask questions and say that I don't know. So that's by creating that. And then if you foster a new person like that, then they become part of the team pretty quickly.
Lauren, do you want to respond?
Yeah, and just to add on that, I think it's really important to make newcomers feel welcomed and part of the team, and it's also really important to have like an onboarding process. Often people join the team and they don't really understand how the company works and how the product even works. So it's really important to have that onboarding process where someone can walk them through that. It is something that the company I'm working for is still working on, but also just to offer help and just to say, if you need any help with coding the repo and showing them through the app, and just being really helpful really does help new people to become a part of the team.
Thank you. We've got another question. Days filled with back-to-back meetings seem to be the new norm in this remote world. Any suggestions about balancing meetings with getting actual work done? Lauren, Stradum, you're smiling like you have an answer, or you don't have an answer?
I'm smiling because this is like the $1 million question, right? Like we're world over right now. This is the question of how do you, when the work is in your home, how do you turn the work off? Especially because, most of us are very driven. We're passionate about the things that we want to do. And so turning that thing off can be hard. This is an age-old trick, and I think I used to do this, and most of us probably did this in the real world too, is blocking out time and really just sticking to that, like owing to it's like your work self-care, like stick to that time, put that stuff in your diary, block out 30 minutes to do your timesheets, to do your admin, to do your compliance training, to do, kind of the review, the documentation, all of those kind of things. Put time in your diary and protect that time fiercely. Again, be flexible, hair on fire meeting must happen, but try and do that in advance as well. I found putting it in sort of 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time where I can see maybe there's going to be a gap there. I might not know what I'm going to do on that day, but you can bet your bottom dollar by that day I'll have something to do in those couple of hours. So that's kind of how I've been managing it. But yeah, and also just, I guess the thing is also not to let the boundaries of your day seep as well. Like have a hard cutoff. Try and keep your work away from your personal space where possible. But yeah, mostly it's just like kind of put space in your diary so that people can't put stuff there. That's kind of the best for me personally. That's how we've managed it so far.
Yeah, I agree. Does anyone else on the panel have any other suggestions? How are you guys managing your work-life balance?
I have a suggestion, but it's more for companies. It's more for companies rather than the employees. What I would really love is if meetings were all recorded and they were optional, so you could watch them later. That would be really awesome.
Then you could watch them at double speed, right?
Exactly.
Cool, is it? Okay, here's another question from Nicole. So this is interesting. All the compromises affect the overall experience. Are we willing to accept that our users aren't getting the experience they deserve in the name of choosing battles? Who's a battle person? Marilyn, you look like you have.
This is something that I've battled with as a designer because you always want the best experience for your customers. But I actually had to look to my developer who actually kind of told me that don't be married to your design, and that this is an iterative process. And it was only once I was actually pairing with another developer and I got to understand the whole process of like, get your customer to something that works, a working product at the end of the day. Your customer might not know that this is not the best solution. As long as it's working, that is what you should be aiming for. Anything that's not working is a slap in your customer's face, and also to you as a business and to you as a company. So yeah, that is one thing that I would say that we should try to aim for. Aim for something that's working, and then you can iterate and improve upon, because with each new release, with each new development, your customers will appreciate that. And you as a business and you as a designer will feel that you're finally getting to the solution that you want and improving on that experience. So that was a mind shift that I had to also still struggle with. Still kind of do at times, but yeah.
Yeah, it's super interesting. And I think it's also, like the more you spend time with the person who does the different work, like the more you start to understand how they experience it, and also realize what you didn't know about them and what they do and what they value. So these are some really nice learnings. I would like to thank all of you for joining us this evening and sharing your experiences and your tips. I love how tangible they are, and the fact that we could all probably do something different tomorrow. So thank you very much. I think we're done. Pam, are you going to close? Bali? Okay, great.
Thank you so much, ladies. Thank you. It was really, really an awesome session, the panel discussion. Thank you so much for the tips. Took quite a few tips there. And yeah, the collaboration as well. Thank you for that. It really went well and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Bye.
Cool. That was a really, really awesome panel session. We've got some awesome swag up for grabs for everyone. And all you need to do, so we've got 2 of them. We've got some offers and swag as well as JetBrains licenses. So for the offers and swag, all you need to do is to scan this QR code or follow the link and fill in the form. And so with the JetBrains one, you'll need to fill in the survey. So we've got 2 of them. For the JetBrains, you fill in the survey, and 2 of you might win JetBrains licenses. Then for offers then as well, you fill in the form. So what we're going to do, we'll leave this this slide on for about 3 minutes for you to fill it in. Then we'll move on to the next slide and give you another 3 minutes to fill in the survey form. And then the winners will be contacted during the week. And thank you, everyone. I think that's it for the night. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Cheers.